Welcome back. Another wonderful day of Fusion 360. This is the first video in a brand new series I'm doing on Fusion 360, and it's going to help you navigate and just set up your file structure and your documents and everything inside the program so that it makes sense, and especially so it makes sense later on. When you're first using the program and you're learning how it works, you make a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to try and mitigate those mistakes and help you work through them and work with the way your workflow is the word you use, but the way you set things up so that you don't get errors, you don't get things that stop working, massive lag in the program. The program does not like when there's missing things that should not be missing, especially with references. And I'll explain that as I go through. So just bear with me. This video might be a bit long. I apologize for that. But it's important because you're going to learn some things you might not learn for a few years down the road. So I'm saving you those headaches. The first thing you'll see is basically this. This is the default setup for Fusion 360. This you won't have because this is my key command. I can hit, right? Everything I type goes in here, especially my shift, my command. I'm on Mac, so command, you can use control for the same button. Keys, it'll show you right here. So that you will not have. It's just to help you out. Now the first thing you'll see is all this. You might see this structure with some kind of title here. I call mine projects. Hopefully yours is too. If you don't have it, just click new project. And this will make a brand new file structure that you can build into. You can call it whatever you want. Mine's just called projects. As you get more detailed and complicated, especially in this design and engineering business, you'll have multiple project folders within folders underneath that of your designs. So inside this, I have my new folder. Yours will be empty. Is 01 Proteus Ed. That's us. This is my folder I'm going to save into. Now to hide this, you don't need this all the time. Just click the hide data panel, and that's it. It goes away. Next thing. First thing you should always do with a brand new document is save it. Command S or Control S, or you can just go right here to the file drop down list and you have save. There's the shortcut. There it is. Now this is a bit different than regular Windows or Mac folder structures, especially navigating. They usually have the back button. They have the folder with a little up arrow that goes to the previous folder you just used. That kind of stuff. This does not have this. You can make new folders and new projects down here, but it's not intuitive as much as I wish it was. So I have my projects folder, which we saw a second ago, inside Proteus Ed. But if you have nothing there, just click the title. You can go back. That's how you go back. Here, there's nothing. Here, there's this. So drop it down and find the folder and create the folder you want. And then let's save it as Fusion 360 01 for our video, and this will be a brand new file where I will save exactly what we do in this video. Next up, you're going to see a blank screen, and this might be a bit offsetting because you have to actually create the objects you want. So just for reference, I'd like you to go up here and click this box tool. This is the default. You should have the exact same thing. If you don't, then maybe your screen's a bit smaller than mine. So this is the full default. If I shrink it, these will disappear because the toolbar shrinks. But drop down create, go down here to box. Now, engineers will say, or CAD designers will say, use sketch. Let's skip that. That comes later. Let's just get us going with the box, and this is just a reference. So again, box, and you're going to have this pop up. This is our origin point, origin planes, origin directions, and this is important. And when you're making stuff, especially if you're going to export for people to make on a CNC machine, 3D print, you're going to send it to a machinist, especially engineers too. They're really particular, some of them, about where the origin point is. And the origin is not the object itself, it's the file and how it relates to the object, where it is in this sort of infinite space that is this area. Because this goes on forever. It's just an infinite number of distances from the origin point. If you go back to high school math, you have our lovely grid. This is a 3D grid. We're going to find the bottom plane. Now the easy way is it defaulted like this. This is how you default into the program. But over here we have a box. I'm going to click the top, and it will show me the top down view. So I'm looking down from the top. If I go to the side, click it, it goes to the side, go to that edge, there's the top, and there's the front. So I'm going to go to the top and then click this plane here, because this will be the bottom plane or the top plane. You can call it whatever you want. And once you click it, it disappears. And this little target, sort of target, pops up. So we have our box. We're going to go from the corner out. So we're going to click here. I'm going to go out. And it gives me a bunch of numbers. Mine's millimeters. I'm going to go 30, tab 30, the tab button. Or you can just, let's go back. Let's go 30, and then, yeah, tab is fine. Just hit tab, enter. Now the last thing to do is the height. It's 5. Let's make it an even 30. So yours should say 30, 30, 30. You can change it here, right? But make it all 30. Make sure this says new body, and then hit OK. This is Fusion. Usually it just says join, but for the very first object you make, it's typically new body. And that's it. Now we actually have a cube. You can't see it if you did what I did, top down. So click just the edge here, and you'll see that corner. Click this corner, and you see the full cube in all its 3D glory. Next thing to do is we're going to navigate around the cube, and this is a few different functions that you'll get the hang of. It becomes second nature, just like walking. Is your middle mouse button. I hope you have one. If you don't, get a mouse that has that rolling wheel in the middle, and you can roll in and out. Really important. This is a must-have. You just stop right now, pause it, go to the store, buy a mouse with a wheel, and it's going to make this program a million times easier. Now, if you roll it, you zoom in and out. If you hold it down and drag your mouse around, you're moving around the object on a single plane, a single axis. This is not actually moving the object. This is moving you. You are a camera floating in this weird space looking onto the object. So again, this is not the object moving. The next thing to do is, this is a quick tip, if you are zoomed in too far, or if you're trying to, let's say, zoom in, and it's taking forever, it's moving so slowly, it's just the smallest and slowest zoom possible, here's a reset. Double click the middle mouse wheel, and it will bring out the view to the entire object. If you have this massive thing, if you built a house in Fusion 360, it will zoom out to the full house itself. Everything inside this document, it will zoom out until it sees everything. And what it does is it resets the zoom speed. So this has happened to me all the time. Fusion 360 gets confused with zooming in and out, and then all of a sudden it's super slow for some reason. There's reasons for it, but we won't need it right now. Just double click and we're done. Next thing, I want you to hold down the shift button. This is my shift. Hold it down and click the middle mouse button, but hold it. Click it and hold it down, and then move your mouse, and now we're rotating. So we have no shift, click and hold, we drag the camera around, shift and click and drag, same idea, and now we're rotating. So that is how we navigate around. Zoom, drag the camera, and rotate. So you can go anywhere you want. You get pretty quick at it. It goes pretty quick. The larger the object, the slower it goes. Depends on sizing. So that is the basic sense of it. And let's go back to the front, top, and right corners. And that's really it for navigation. It's really easy. It's very simple. And that double click in the middle mouse button will save you some stress later on. The next thing we're going to do is look at the toolbar here just quickly. So again, if you drop it down, you see all the lists of different creation tools, our modifying tools, which change objects that exist. So here is to create something new, only creation. Here is to change, only changing. If I click this corner here and I go modify, chamfer, I'm changing the object itself. Hit escape to cancel. So that's this. Assembly is putting things together, adding joints, let's say a hinge or a sliding movement joint, and other things too. And construction planes are references. Construction planes are the exact same idea as the origin plane. Let's say I get rid of my box and I want to create a new box for the very first time. This does not exist, this box here, not there. That same thing we saw earlier that you click the bottom plane on, that is the same idea as the construction planes. But this time, when we do construction planes, we are making our own origins, and they are permanent until you don't need to delete them, but until you hide them. The most important thing over here, which I use 1,000 times in any single project, is the inspection tool, or the measurement tool, and the inspection list. I actually have never really used these very often. If I'm getting for certain projects, and yes, you can use different things. There's great tools in here, but this one, the measurement tool, is the default, is really key. And what it does is just shows you how long something is. It shows you, this is the reset, restart the selection, how big something is, so the area. And then we also have angles, like two objects angles, distance between 2 points, this point and this point. Let's go this point and this point and this point, plus angles. Not showing me show snap, no. But this is really key for figuring out what lengths are. And the last thing here on this list that we're really going to talk about, outside of the most important thing over here, is our addition. So you're going to add things like there's a decal, you can add images. So as an example here, you can see that what they did is took a picture of a car and they put it behind where they're going to draw the car or create the car, and then they move themselves and they draw their car in 3D space around it. Apologies, my voice is a bit rough. It's September, the new year for education and schooling, so my voice is kind of raspy after a few weeks of teaching. Now the last thing, which is really important, this is something I do by default when I first start a brand new object and document, and even open up the entire program because it resets every single time you open Fusion 360, is the selection preferences. So by default, you should have these three boxes here. The first one selects the whole body. The second one is the faces, and the third is the edges. The green is what you select. When you have nothing here, you can select all of them, any of them. So I can select the faces and the edges and the corners, anything you want, but you cannot select the whole body unless you click the actual, drop this down, the body, or later on the component list, and it will select the body. I'll make more boxes. Let's go new body. Make more boxes, right? They're individual. But my default is to use this, the body selection priority. Why? It's something I got used to, and my workflow ends up using it all the time. Just the way I use tools. Because as one reference, if I select a body and then hit a tool, sometimes on certain tools, it's a different action than selecting the tool and then the body. So if you look here, now it's shelling over this corner, which is a different shell effect than selecting the body and shelling. I'll explain it in future videos, but this is just my workflow. You can do it differently, that's fine, but you might get a bit confused when things don't work properly. So just a heads up, if you're trying to copy me, try to use the same list of things I do in the same order. Click, tool, action, or tool, click, action, depending. And you can, if you select one of these, again, it only selects that thing. I can't select edges, I can't select corners. So just beware of that. So if you can't do something, it's probably here first. The next thing is selecting multiple objects. And there's a few options. There's window, freeform, and paint. Really simply, this is the classic window where you select things. So anything inside the window will be selected. Right now, if I go bodies only, it changes that. So now if I select just this and I leave this edge open, it's this. If I select the whole thing, then it's both. And then if I select edges only, it changes. Now it's only the edges that I highlighted. Going back, there's freeform. This one is if you have complicated objects. Let's say you have a bunch of nuts and bolts on the edge here. You only want a certain number of them. You can select a certain, you can wrap around them. But anything inside this yellowish window gets selected. The whole thing gets selected. If I do this and everything but this tiny corner on the left here of this object, it will not be selected. That's that. And the last one is the paint selection, which is just a drag over and it becomes selected. If you hold down Shift, it adds the selection. If you don't hold down Shift, then it won't add the selection, just kind of does a new one each time. And that's the basics of our toolbar. The last few things we're going to talk about here is the history menu down here. This is the history timeline. This is sort of a new thing for Fusion. If you've been on a hiatus on the program for a few years and coming back to it, this is brand new. It's a wonderful thing. It does change certain workflow things. It changes this: remove versus delete. If you have the history turned on, which is the default function for Fusion, then you should really never use delete. There's a few reasons you would use it, but trust me, do not use the delete option. Never delete. Just use remove. And I'll talk about that in a future video. You can turn the history off by down here. Do not capture design history. When you do this, though, anything you do to these objects, any modifying action, gets put in this very, very annoying list. And it gets put, I think it's between origin and bodies. Let's say I do a bunch of chamfers on 100 different edges. I'll then have 100 chamfer icons listed here forever. I have to scroll for days on this list, scroll up and down for days, just to go down my bodies folder and the components and so on. So just keep the history on. The history does not really use very much more memory or processing power. It's basically the same thing. It's just that Fusion 360 likes it a lot more, especially here for your understanding of what's happening inside your document. The next thing is really important. This is units, and this is the sizing for everything. So I use millimeters. Most of the world uses millimeters. There was actually a famous story with the Hubble Space Telescope, and one of the lenses, I hope I'm not wrong, but the lens on that they're putting up, they're fixing something with the lenses, bringing a new lens up there, and the US team and the European team use different measurement types. And they're really good at transferring back and forth, but millimeters and inches do not transfer exactly. There's, depending on how many decimal points you're going to be using, it can change certain things, like rounding up and rounding down. So when they brought the lens up, it didn't fit. And it very, very costly mistake. Look it up. I might have missed a few details or got something incorrect here, but that's basically the story. So just watch what you're doing here. It probably won't matter, but in the end, you can transfer back and forth. If you go from inches and make for days and then change it in millimeters, Fusion does a great job of doing that. If you want to change the decimal points, you can go into preferences here. And what it does is it shows you, when it pops up, it shows you your measurements. Where is it? Manufacturing, design. Let's go design. Electronics. No, I don't want that. General. In here, I forget where it is exactly. I'm just units. Here we go. How many precisions do you want? I use 4. You can use lots if you want. It goes up to you. Angular precisions and so on. So just be wary. If you're getting different numbers than me, if you're trying to copy what I do, just watch under here, document settings, that you're on millimeters. This is my default. I think it's the default when you first start Fusion. You can change it in preferences, the default. Again, change the units to, where are we? Metric, yeah, and so on. I hope this helps you out. That's the basic go around for Fusion. I'm going to save this, Command S, and I guess the last thing I'll mention here, since it's already here, is whenever you save, it makes a brand new version of the document. And you can actually go back in history and look at older versions of your saves. It works the same as saving anything else, where you're adding the next save, the next save, the next save, the next stuff on top of it. But any changes you do is actually saved back in history in the Fusion Cloud, in the Autodesk Cloud, because everything's online now. So you can call it, let's say, basic nav and boxes. Whatever you do, let's say you do a few things and you chamfer a few edges. You can say chamfer main component or something, whatever you want. Let's just say first save done. So if you go back here, version, we have the first one and right now the current one. And if you want to go back to here, you have to actually pull it and make it the current version, which is called promoting. Don't worry about that. You probably won't need that for quite a while. Really, when I use this, it's usually when I've worked on something for a long time and there's a mistake in the history, just days of scrolling history, and it turns red and it's messing things up and things aren't working properly. So I have to go back to a previous version that works and promote it up and then redo some things. That's when I use it. There's other cases too, and that's just my 2 cents on this. All right, so I'm going to stop here. I hope this helps. I hope this makes sense. Please leave a comment below on things that you might think I should show you, or things I might have missed, or important details that I could add to the future videos. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you subscribe, and I'll see you later.